Good evening. My name is Bob Liff, and this is the CUNY Forum, a monthly town meeting that brings together prominent New Yorkers with students and faculty from the Edward T. Rogowski Internship Program in Government and Public Affairs. It used to be said about legislators in Albany that there were only three ways they ever left office: death, indictment, or becoming a judge. The New York City Council has a fourth way with term limits, which, depending on your view, refreshes the council with new ideas or robs the body of institutional knowledge and experience needed to combat a strong executive. Last month, voters elected 11 new members to the 51-member council. One incumbent was defeated, Republican Robert Holden squeaking out a victory over Democrat Elizabeth Crowley in a Queens district based in Maspeth. That brings the number of Republicans to 4. We saw the number of women on the council drop by 2 to 12, with Crowley's defeat and Assemblyman Francisco Moya taking what had been Julissa Ferreira's seat in Jackson Heights. Moya was one of 2 assembly members moving to the council, along with Mark Gonage, who took Jimmy Vacca's seat in the Northeast Bronx, while State Senator Ruben Diaz Jr. reclaimed what was once his Bronx council seat. Tonight we will meet 4 of the new council members who may be new to elective office, but they are certainly not new to public service and civic activism. Alika Empry Samuel will represent her native Brownsville's 41st district, replacing term-limited Darlene Mealing. Samuel has worked as a child protective specialist for the City Housing Authority, and for Brooklyn State Assemblywoman Latrice Walker. She also worked for the U.S. State Department in the American Embassy in Ghana and West Africa. Adrian Adams, elected in Southeast Queens' 28th District, was chair of Community Board 12 with a career that combined corporate experience and work in child development with activist work on civil rights, police, community relations, and education. While some of her new colleagues are replacing members who were term limited, Adams' predecessor, Reuben Wills, left because of a different term limit. He faces 2 to 6 years in jail after being convicted for misappropriating public money. She is the only one here already sitting on the council, serving out the remainder of Will's term. Carlina Rivera was legislative director for term-limited council member Rosie Mendez, who she is now replacing in the 2nd District on Manhattan's Lower East Side. She's a veteran neighborhood activist on issues as varied as advocating for after-school programs, fighting New York University's expansion plans, and organizing door-to-door efforts in the wake of Hurricane Sandy for residents and small businesses. Justin Brannon had served as staff chief to council member Vincent Gentile, who he is now replacing in Bay Ridge's 43rd District. He's worked for the Department of Education, created a charitable organization in his district, and as a professional musician who has toured the world with his band, though I understand he did not bring his band tonight. And unlike almost all of his other colleagues, he had a contested general election in one of New York's few swing districts. We want to meet them, find out how they got here, and how they approach decisions ranging from land use to budget to siting of social service facilities, and their first and most politically fraught decision, who they think should be speaker. Alika, let me start with you, since you're from Brownsville, and I learned how to swim in what was then the Brownsville Boys Club. You were elected to replace a term-limited member. You have a lot of issues with the move to try to create affordable housing, where you have protests that there's not enough housing, that it may be affordable, but that the rents are too high. How do you balance this?
So first, thank you for just being here. This is exciting, and I'm excited about going into this this new adventure in my life of serving as a councilwoman. So I come from public housing. I'm a product of public housing.
I am too, Linden houses.
And yeah, and I grew up in Marcus Garvey houses. And in addition to growing up in NYCHA, I've also worked with so many different organizations that do housing. I work with Northeast Brooklyn Housing Development. I worked for Common Ground, now Breaking Ground. And I have seen so many different issues throughout the community, not just affordable housing, but also protecting families who are losing their home due to predatory lending. We have the Nehemiah homeowners who invested so much in the district and they're losing their homes. They're being foreclosed on. There's deed theft. There are just so many different issues that plague the 41st District as it relates to housing, that public housing is not just the issue, affordable housing is not just the issue, and protecting homes is not the only issue. So it's me going into a situation where the community needs a voice. The community needs someone who has a skill set and expertise to tackle the housing crisis, not just in the 41st, but New York City overall. And I'm looking forward to working with the administration and my new colleagues, making sure that we have affordable housing in the district.
Adrienne, in your district, you've worked with a lot of these issues because you were a community board leader. And when it comes to things like citing social service agencies, homeless shelters, many communities with, I think, justification complain that they're getting too much of a fair share. Is that what's happening in Jamaica, in your district? And how do you work with the administration? How do you fight that, understanding that there's obviously a need?
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to thank you also for hosting us this evening in this lovely forum. Jamaica and the districts of my community board, where I've come from, Community Board 12, we have seen a population of homeless shelters for decades, proliferating in the districts of Community Board 12 for a very long time. There are 14 community boards in Queens, and Community Board 12 has 32% of all homeless facilities right there resident within those districts.
32% of Queens or 32% of the city?
32% of all homeless facilities within Queens are located within the districts of Board 12, where we have, as I say, if we look at 14 community boards, we look at 8 out of the 14, 9 out of the 14, between 0 and 5%. So for Community Board 12 districts, which are districts of color, we know that there is a specific reason why this has happened for decades and decades. We also take a look at how under the de Blasio administration, some of that has begun to shift a little bit, in that he has attempted as of late to have a little bit of equity for the other districts on the other community boards, which has helped. But we also note that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So we noticed that we had a lot of noise made over in Maspeth, rightfully so, by residents and activists saying, well, these facilities can be put elsewhere.
Which contributed to Liz Crowley being defeated.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that, but still, the point is that we notice that in certain communities, when noise is made, action is taken in behalf of those communities. We do the same things in a much higher proliferation of the same circumstance for decades, and we have no voice. So I'm really, really happy to be at City Council right now, as my colleague said, to be the voice of the voiceless, because we have been voiceless for so long in issues like that. Housing is desperately needed, and happily, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, but the Renaissance of Jamaica is an exciting thing. So we're now seeing the Renaissance of Jamaica being brought forward, which is going to bring that facelift that the Jamaica Corps has needed for so long, and I'm very proud to say that Community Board 12 and others demanded 100% affordable housing be brought to the district's downtown Jamaica core, so that we are making sure that there is equity in housing and all housing that's coming up right now and being developed.
Justin, in Bay Ridge, you and the mayor has a progressive agenda, which a lot of people agree with. In your district, it was a mixed bag, and you put distance between yourself and the mayor. Is that a fair reading?
Sure, yeah. I mean, look, I've known the mayor for a long time, but, in running for city council, I was very clear that if the mayor, has a plan that's going to help my district, I'll be the first one to co-sign that plan. But if he's got a plan or ideas that are going to hurt my district, I'm going to fight against him. And I think that the relationship I have with the mayor, he would expect nothing less. So yeah, it was important to express my independence and make people understand that I work for the Department of Education. I wasn't working for the mayor, and I didn't take the mayor's endorsement because I felt that the body is supposed to be a check on the mayor. So to have the endorsement of the guy or the girl or the mayor that you're trying to keep in check, right? To me, just didn't make sense. So, and that's how I ran my campaign, as an independent, as a guy that's going to ultimately put my neighborhoods first and foremost.
Carlina, you're representing one of the most activist communities in the city. I mean, when I was a reporter for many years, I remember covering the Tompkins Square Park riots. A lot of people in your district kind of want to push the mayor further.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, how do you balance trying to work with the mayor and pushing him?
I think, Justin said it really well. We have to be independent. Of course, we have to work with the mayor because he has a tremendous amount of power and resources that could really benefit our communities. So we want to be fair and we want to listen, but we are that body that is supposed to check him and make sure that, we're really speaking on behalf of all of our constituents. So yes, I would say that Lower East Side, East Village, District 2, very, very progressive, I think, in the traditional definition of the word. Very active, very proactive community boards, not just passing resolutions to endorse resolutions that are coming from the state and the city level, but really putting forward policy that they're hoping to implement in City Hall. So I do have a lot of big shoes to fill, but I also have this amazing network of people that I can go to. And yes, everyone is very, very opinionated. But these are the people that got me to where I am. And I have to say that the community boards, going back to what was mentioned, we have 4 that overlap District 2. They're very, very different. They all have unique needs and priorities. And I think that when it comes to pushing the mayor, I mean, we're the first people at the rally protesting will occupy. I'm really, really proud of that. And I think that we have to use those tactics as well as policy, as well as working with our community boards. We have to have a good balance. Sometimes you have to get out there and you have to make some noise, especially in this national political climate.
Each of you have been talking about your districts. There are times when citywide needs will clash with what you want to see happen in your district. I'm talking about, I guess what's called member veto, member deference. You've seen this in some of the affordable housing proposals from the mayor, most recently in Crown Heights and in the Bedford Armory. You've seen it going on now also in Brooklyn in the Bedford Triangle, in the Broadway Triangle, where there are people who are saying affordability is not enough, and that the council has traditionally deferred to the individual member as to whether or not to approve particular projects. There are times, particularly in the siting of homeless shelters and stuff, where the council has overridden individual members. Should you have, should you have member deference? Are there times when you have to overrule for the better of the larger city what your people want to stop?
I think there's extreme instances where you might need to, but I think overall member deference is important. I mean, there's no one that's going to know the district better than the member, and you trust that member to know his or her district very well. So I think there might be. I think there was an instance recently that came up, but before that, I think it's been a long time before that was an issue. I think because you're elected to represent your area, and you should be.
But you also have citywide responsibilities. I mean, you're not only. The city council is setting citywide policy. So.
But I would actually say that I'm just representing Brownsville, and my particular district, my community for so many years there was always plans around the district, but they never really discussed those plans with the residents. And so a lot of times you'll have all of these smart people around the table with great ideas, but do not at all speak to the community about it. And so I believe that the council members are the ones who actually know the district. And it's the council members who are representative of the community and should be the voice. And so they should be the ones speaking to and making that overall decision. And in fact, it did happen in my district just this past, the last stated meeting. And there was a housing project that my councilwoman did not approve of. And she didn't approve of it because she felt that it wasn't enough affordability. There wasn't enough, there was too much supportive housing. And she waited to the very end to make sure that the actual project had everything that she felt the community should have. And the council was ready to veto her vote. And I just think that it just sets a bad precedent when you do that. and it just takes away from the voice of the leader.
I would agree 100% with everything that my colleagues just said. We have to be the voice of the district.
But yet, your district, in talking about, in the example, let's say, of the homeless facilities, that was not done with the local council member welcoming them. They were kind of put there. Or is that not an accurate?
No, that is completely accurate. But what we're talking about is flipping that. There was no consensus or advisement from the council member at all. Quite the opposite, actually. Which to their point, which is why the member should be the voice that is there to represent that community. In our case, I know for a fact, because as the board chair, I worked with the former council member, and we were all on the same page. We knew what our district had been going through for decades and decades and decades. We knew the fights that had been going on, which again went nowhere. Went absolutely nowhere. There was even a resolution that was passed that I actually wrote in 2014. The first resolution that I wrote that was passed unanimously by the community board. It's been used as examples for other organizations since then, and that was to lay out all of the logistics when it comes to the factors involved in the number of the shelters within those districts, and to show the percentages compared to other districts, to show the disparity and the inequity, which is literally right in our faces. That document was sent to every elected official from the mayor on down, and I can tell you personally, there was no correspondence back to us as a community board saying yay or nay, no email, no phone call, no written response, even acknowledging the fact that we requested a complete moratorium on the expansion or further development of homeless shelters within the districts of Community Board 12. 3 years later, we're now taking a look at, oh yeah, you're right. There is disparity, there is inequity in your district. We're going to do something about it. In my estimation, there's still a lot to be done and a very long way to go, but the member should ultimately have that decision.
I agree. I don't think it's absolute, and, but as everyone mentioned, and this group particularly has been very, very active in their community. So even if you're not a lifelong resident, but you've put your time in, you've spent those years, whether it's on the community board or as a tenant leader or on your block association, these are the relationships that the council member has the responsibility to have, so that way you're listening to every single part of your district and you're not neglecting any neighborhood. And the campaigns that we just went through, I mean, we've knocked on thousands of doors. We've spoken to so many people. So we really do have, and I have total confidence in my colleagues, that knowledge of block to block. Oh, yes. Like from every block, what's going on, what they need, what the resources that they could really benefit from. So when it comes to a big land use application that could dramatically change the landscape of your communities, you really have to be able to say, hey, I'm the one that was elected, I'd really love to be listened to. Now, if your council member is not doing the work and is not talking to the community boards, that's what elections are for.
The corollary of member deference, member veto, is member items, which are very, very controversial. Reuben Wills is facing jail because of misappropriation of monies that were part of the member items. There were other council members who have either been tried or gone to jail, Miguel Martinez, because of this. There's been a move in Washington to do away with member items, similar debates going on, that if something is worth funding, it should be funded citywide. The other argument, of course, is that who's going to know a neighborhood group the way a council member? How do you measure it? How do you protect it? How do you protect the public purse in this?
I think part of it is, my campaign was sort of about demystifying the role of local government and what we do. And I think, one of the things I was calling for is participatory budgeting, where we have a pot of money and now the people can decide how that money is spent. I think the days of the elected officials saying, I allocated $6 million and I did this. It didn't come out of the guy's checking account. It came from taxpayers' money. It came from our money, right? So I think people are smarter than that. I think voters and residents are smarter than that. And I think that participatory budgeting is one of the sort of things that has come out of that to show that people really have the power. I think, member items is a powerful thing, but it doesn't have to be a shrouded backroom thing. It can be very out in the open, and these are groups that do.
So it should be out in the open.
Yeah, 100%. These are groups that do X, Y, Z in the community, and they've been funded by the last, 3 council people because they do great work and that kind of stuff. I think as long as there's transparency, there's, we won't get in trouble,
And I see that now because you can go online and look up discretionary funds. You can look to see what your council member is funded. Now, and I remember working in the council where we didn't have that. I remember working in the council in 2000, and there was no concept of going online to see what the council member.
In those days, they were hidden.
Exactly. Right. But you see the difference now. There's a lot of transparency, and there's a lot of access now to your local government. And so I think the times have changed. And so now it's really about electing people who know how to manage a budget and have that level of knowledge and expertise to actually go in and be effective and have a direct impact.
Are you interested in participating? Are you going to do participatory budgeting process?
I am. In my district, the current councilwoman
bet
does
there's a
not.
lot of participation in your district.
So what's great, right, is that it's like this it's amazing
I mean, I
process.
respect
No, honestly, I know. I'm hoping to.
Empathetically, but for you, but
It's great because, like, internally in the council, actually, there's like a competition to get the most votes. So just so you know, I plan to win. But yeah, so the current councilwoman does not do it. Why I'm going to implement it is because I do think that there are opportunities to engage parts of the district that aren't necessarily, the people that you see sometimes in the room over and over and over again. So we do have incredibly active community boards. I mentioned that. But this is an opportunity to engage people who, regardless of status, I think they're bringing the age down to 12. So you get to engage with young people in a different way, and hopefully, I hope that leads to more voter engagement, civic engagement, and we start seeing, young people out there on the community boards, but also increasing kind of voter participation.
Yeah, I think for me, District 28 has never had participatory budgeting, and that was one of the main things that I campaigned on. So I brought a lot of excitement around participatory budgeting. Just the idea alone, bringing it into the district is a very exciting thing, very refreshing. So I'm really excited to see what the community has to offer, because as everyone has said, this is the time to be transparent. If we've had no other time or no other means before, now we have it. We have access. Our constituents have access to see what's going on. Quite frankly, I don't want anything to be hidden from my constituents, especially in the situation I'm in. But moving forward, I'm really excited to join and co-join with the community in a way that's never happened before.
And if I could just add one last thing, with technology, a lot of things are transparent. So you can see a lot of these allocations online. It's not the easiest interface. It's not the most user-friendly, but the council is also working on that. They've passed an open budget kind of policy to make it easier, and with PB, with participatory budgeting. So maybe you don't have that demographic of people who aren't digitally savvy to be able to vote online, but you're able to bring these workshops throughout your community. So while you're getting people to vote on how to spend their money, you also can use that opportunity to explain to maybe the seniors who vote every time, hey, this is your opportunity. All those tax dollars that you spent throughout your whole life, please tell us how to use it.
let me put you all on the spot. The first vote you're going to make is going to be for Speaker. So I assume there are at least 8 of your colleagues that you're getting to know very well since the election.
We're BFFs.
Yeah. They're your best. They're your best friends. All men, no women.
True.
Have you decided who you're going to vote for Speaker? Tell me.
I'm going to write in Carlina.
Wow. Right? So,
no pressure.
I'm honored.
I'm going to try to avoid you being cowards and at least try to, which I respect.
I think I could say what I assume we're all looking for is independence from the mayor. Someone that, just like we are, that we're going to stand up to the mayor when he's wrong, and we're going to work with him when he's right, and someone that's going to put the body, I think, first and foremost.
Well, I mean, who's been? I mean, you've met with all the Speaker candidates?
Not all. I've met with almost everyone.
Almost all.
I mean, but tell me how you're measuring this. Is it about your borough? Is it about your county leader? You're Manhattan, so there's no real organized Democratic Party. Are you responding as a borough among your members? I mean, what are the factors?
All of it,
that
all of those factors. You have to take
Yeah.
into consideration your district, but like you said, you are working on behalf of your constituents, but you have to take into account how this is going to affect citywide. You want to see also their track record. You want to see where they've been on past issues. How progressive are they? They're all in the progressive caucus. Well, I think all except one. But really, where have they been? Are they collaborative? That's really, really important to me. Again, going back to using I want someone who said, you know, we've done this together, and we're really going to make sure that we're going to keep, you know, moving.
You have a choice? Are you narrowing in on a choice?
I'm narrowing in on a choice, absolutely.
And you don't want to tell us.
You know,
No, look, my job is the questioner. I'm not,
You know what I've been,
I don't have subpoena power.
you know what I've been thinking about? I've been thinking about who. It's hard. You got to figure out how to judge everybody, right? So I've been thinking about who would be the least vindictive if they become speaker and I wasn't with them. Because you know, you want to have a camaraderie, like whether we're all with you or not, you're the speaker now, we need to come together, right? So you want to have someone that's not going to be vindictive. Granted, there's rules reform that prevent a lot of that, but still, it is what it is. But you want someone, I think, that's ultimately going to put the body before everything and is going to understand that there's 51 very unique districts. You know, you mentioned Liz Crowley. I mean, there's a loss there because, you know, what's happening across the city is not exactly what's resonating in her district, right? There was some shakeup there. So I think it's important to have a speaker that's going to understand that every district is different. You know, I wake up every day represented by 3 Republicans. I'm the only elected Democrat in my area. So I have a different set of needs and concerns and priorities than, you know, Carlina or Alika, you know. So it's someone that has to understand that first and foremost, they have to sort of, I guess, put their own, you know, ambition on a shelf for a little while to, you know, to really promote the body.
Adrian, Queens is viewed as the center of power because the county leader has one of the most organized forces. Have you heard from Congressman Crowley? Are you going to be influenced by him? I mean, talk to me about who you want for speaker, if you would name. I mean, you have Donovan Richards, I believe. You have one candidate who's and you have Jimmy Van Bramer, who was from Queens. Is that a factor? Are you going to listen to your candidate? How are you approaching this? And I realize there's a political discomfort in it, but that's why I get to ask the
I'm
question.
not. Is Congressman Crowley in the building? Okay.
I was going to use that.
Speak freely.
And nobody's listening to us. It's just going to be on TV. Just among
Between the 5 of us.
No pressure at all. No pressure at all. No, and seriously, I don't feel any pressure. In all honesty,
Good. I don't think you should.
I really don't.
It's your vote.
I'm a part of an amazing delegation, and I'm very proud to be a part of that delegation. That said, I am an independent thinker, and have been taking everything into consideration, especially considering where I'm coming from right now and the specifics. And I think I'm just going to put it out there. We need a speaker who just like my colleague said, is going to take into account all of the issues and the factors of the entire body. But part of me is saying I've got to be very selfish right now. District 28 has been left alone for a long time to our own devices. And I say our own devices. I can't even say my constituents because I've been a constituent for far too long. To now come into this role and say, all right, I'm going to take a step back and now we're something different. I wouldn't be authentic to myself. So I've got to be very selfish about my decision.
Alika.
And so for me, and thinking about the fact that I do have a vote, but understanding the process, the fact that I have to vote on the next speaker out of
It only
50
needs
women.
26 votes, right?
Yes. However, there's so many other factors that's playing into that, like the county leaders and the fact that I am from Brooklyn. Am I meeting, am I supposed to be meeting with my county leader, and where does my county leader play into this whole situation? And so as an individual, how am I negotiating on behalf of myself and my constituency as it relates to the speaker's race? What am I asking for? What do I want? And how do I even ask that question as a new member coming in? And that's interesting when, I'm not part of county.
Do you? Does anybody want to give a name? I mean, does anybody want to give a name who they won't support? I mean, for instance, for instance, we had
When does
we
this
had
air?
our first.
Depends on when this airs.
Yeah, wait.
We're finishing up. We've lost a number of women members. We have right now the first Latina, the highest elected Latina official in the history of the city.
Yep.
And is that a relevant factor? I mean, we do have an African American public advocate, but much of the rest of the cities and the state is essentially white, basically white men, with the exception of Senator Gillibrand. Is that a factor? Do you think that?
I think those are all factors. I think that there's certainly, a desire for a person of color. You want that your government to reflect what the city looks like, right? And that's one of the things. But there's so many things that go into it. And I think, like my colleagues were saying, I mean, I'm like a union guy, so I believe in strength in numbers, where you can say, okay, I'm going to vote with my delegation, I'm going to vote with my caucus, whatever it is. But then, like my colleague was saying, is you got to worry about your own district. And what am I going to get from my constituents? It's not about me or us, right? It's about what am I? I'm going to be succeeding a guy who's been there for 15 years. So there's a lot, that I'm going to want to do, right? So who's going to help me do that? There's so many, it's a very intricate play. So
I don't mean this in any negative way. So you're all up for offers on behalf of your district.
Sure, we're being courted.
I don't mean that
Blind and
at all.
All 8 candidates are very, very, very capable. So I think, to all of our credit here, they are very, very capable, and I think that any of them would do a fantastic job.
Let me throw one other thing that, I guess Adonis Rodriguez started it, and then Jumaane Williams introduced a measure towards term limits. We voted 3 times for term limits. I happen to, my own view is I think term limits are kind of stupid, but the people voted for it 3 times. And I think, Mayor Bloomberg, to his discredit, and the council went along with it because they got a 3rd term, kind of rolled over all these votes, and then there was another vote, the next year that reimposed term limits. This is a 2-part question. Do you think term limits should be lifted, or at least give a 3rd term to the council? And do you think you can do it legislatively, or you need to go back to the people?
I will say that I think the only way it should happen is through the people, through a vote. That is the only way. I'm not for it. I think we're at this point. I think we're at 8 years. It took a while to get here. There's a reason why there's 8 years. I know institutional knowledge is important. I do think, though, the energy of new classes coming in is also important. When I sit across from a speaker candidate and we're discussing priorities, I don't want to hear about extending term limits. That's not gonna get my vote. I want to hear about where they stand on criminal justice reform and NYCHA and preserving small businesses. So I'm not for it. And if we do decide to, it's got to go to the voters. It's got to go to the people.
Yeah, I think that there have been some pretty apolitical arguments for it, as far as, in 4 years from now, you're going to have it's going to be 40 new members, which is wild. That's the first time that's ever going to happen. I think there's also an argument to be made for being a check on the executive branch, of having to outlive them in order to sort of have power over them. But I agree with Carlina. I mean, ultimately, I ran for this office knowing it was going to be 2 terms, and it should be put to the voters. But it has been put to the voters already.
3 times.
Yeah. So, I don't think politicians should be the one deciding if the people want it, but they don't want that. But if they do, that's up to them to vote. But that's not for us to decide.
Do you think?
Can I just add also,
yes,
with some of the speaker candidates, what I'd like to hear, he just mentioned how many seats are going to be flipped, right, in 2021. So, we're a part of an initiative called 21 in 2021, which is to aim to get 21 women elected to the city council in 2021. Now, thinking about the seats that are going to be vacant and how many women, and let's assume re-election, but you never want to assume, I mean, we're going
Well,
to.
we have 25% of the women who are going to be on
Well,
the
that's the
council
point.
sitting
We're,
right here.
we're going to be hustling to get like
Right.
17 women
Right.
elected,
Right.
you know,
Right.
besides the other progressive seats
Right.
that we want to fill. So I want to hear about what they're honestly going to do, what they've done, but what they're really going to do to make sure that women are in leadership and making sure that we're getting more women to run for office.
Yeah, it's important.
Yes.
Have you gotten, without naming names, unless of course you want to, have you gotten commitments on these kinds of issues? I mean, do people promise you things?
They promise you
Everything.
whatever you need, whatever you want.
So you're going to be chairman of finance, and you're gonna
Finance
be
and
chairman
land
of-
use.
and land use.
One of the things, I'll tell you this, Bob, one of the things we've been talking about, which interests me, is raising the budget a little bit for what each member is allowed for staff and office and stuff like that. This hasn't been raised in a long time. And the money that they give you they give you one pot of money where you have to pay your rent, you got to buy your pencils and pens, and you have to hire staff. And for 2017 to 18, it's not a lot of money. So the speaker candidates who talk about that certainly get my attention, because I want to have a good staff. I want to pay them a living wage. I want them to stick around. And right now, it's very hard to do that with the budget that they give you.
Yeah.
And I was a staffer when they gave themselves a raise.
Yeah, me too.
So that was hard to watch. I silently protested from the mezzanine with my colleagues because it was,
Because
yes,
when the members gave themselves a raise.
yes, and I think it's one of the most difficult, challenging jobs in the city.
I think we were all staffers, right?
Yeah.
So if you've been around long enough, you know that 9 times out of 10, the staffers are the ones that really do the work, right?
True.
The elected official is sort of the guy.
You can't say that anymore.
Well, no, but as a staffer, but as a staffer, I think you always see things differently. So being an elected that was a staffer, you're going to see things differently. But being a staffer in the council, you work hard, and some people are getting paid $30,000.
That's
And
why
you
you
can't
want to
pay
get
overtime,
interns. That's why you want to get interns.
Yeah, we
from
need
the-
everybody
Well, you
here.
know, it's like this is a union, overtime, and you want
crazy.
people to
Yeah.
feel like they're being compensated for their skills
Yep.
and for the level of commitment
But
that
you
you have to
can't.
give at this role. And,
Yeah.
and you
But
really
you
can't.
really
You know,
cannot.
I'm sorry. I just have to chime in. I as of late, have had to hire staff. So
Right,
I,
right. You're already-
I actually
yeah,
took the oath of office last week, so I'm in the rocket right now. So, and I can tell you, you are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
It's so tough, and I've got great people that are excited to come on board, that are excited to work, in city council. So I'm really blessed to have the folks that I have. But for what we were given, the budget that we got, just in looking at it, we've got to do better.
Yeah.
We've got to do better because we have so much talent that we want to keep. It's going to be very difficult to
Well,
keep.
that's your office budget. The city budget itself is going to be under assault because of what's going on in Washington.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with the tax plan, which is really kind of with the Trump tax plan or the Senate Republican tax plan, which is like almost a social. It kind of redefines everything from abortion to health care, which is as part of a tax bill. You're going to face, there's going to be pressure that's going to roll downhill through the state to you guys. You're going to have potentially less money to provide the kinds of services. Where would you cut?
You know what's
I mean,
interesting?
we haven't touched schools. There's a whole range
Yeah,
of things
sure.
that we can't. We haven't had time to get into with any depth.
What's interesting, in just talking from a purely district level perspective, the 41st Council District has always been left out. We have always not received our fair share of government dollars, right? There's always been this argument of we don't have enough funding and resources for our schools. When you look at public housing, HUD has always not allocated funding for public housing. The state did not, allocate funding to public housing except for just in 2015 with the 100 million, and that's another story. But we're always at the end, at the bottom of the totem pole. And so from my community, we're always having this conversation about, like, oh, Trump is in office now.
So what would you
What are
cut?
we going to do?
What would you
but the
cut in
issue
order to free
is,
up money?
but there is, we always try to figure out how to survive. So for us is looking at creative ways to get funding to our district because we don't get the level of funding that other communities receive. So for us, it's about surviving and thriving and looking for where we can pull money and resources from. And I'm excited about the fact that now, for the first time, with me being in city council and having a direct partnership and relationship with my state elected official, we can combine our resources together, which has never happened. So it's really about looking at ways to come up with other funding mechanisms for different programs and everything else. But
I think you nailed it on the head. I mean, it's getting creative. I mean, I think that we know what's coming. I think we've had a long time where we've been flush and we've been okay, and now we got to prepare for the worst. And I think in the same way that our role as council members has changed under Donald Trump, where we have to be vocal. Back in the day, it used to be like, well, that's not my jurisdiction, so I just fill the potholes. That doesn't fly anymore, right? Now you have to be vocal, you have to be outspoken on all these issues that matter, because your community needs to hear this, where you stand on stuff, whether or not you have jurisdiction over it. So it's about protecting what we've got for city funding, and and it might come down to figuring out where we're going to cut, but it's going to have to be getting creative, and that's why we were elected, So
well, you also have, Albany, which is
a hot mess.
Which is either utterly dysfunctional or, just has its own state of dysfunction.
Sure.
And you have the fight over the Independent Democratic Conference, which is, because you have elected Democrats, but you don't have a Democratic effective control in the Senate.
My senator.
You expect, my senator too. Do you expect help from all? Next year is a state election year. And home rule message. We were talking about it before the show. New York City is totally a creation of Albany. We can't put a red light camera up unless Albany says that it's okay. We don't have. We have extremely limited powers relative to the state, and they control so much money that are these things you try to leverage in politics next year?
I think so, and I'm really, really lucky to have already really good relationships with pretty much all of the electeds.
Because of the community board.
Because the community board, that's right, relationships throughout the years. So I'm very confident and really happy about those relationships. And I really feel for our electeds in Albany, our true Democratic electeds in Albany. I'll say it that way, because we have the IDC, some would argue, are not really, Democrats at this point. But I will leave that argument to Albany. But I am really, really happy to have those relationships. And as Alika said, I will also be working very closely with my elected officials in Southeast Queens who are in Albany making those decisions. And I think together we're going to do the right thing.
Good. I mean, also this idea of shortfalls in funding. This is, on the one hand, we have low unemployment. There are, statistically things are going well. But if people, they said if you have 50 people in the room, and and Bill Gates walks in, then the average income goes up by $190 million. So those numbers can be misleading. I mean, there's great need, even while some statistics look good.
I think, when people hear of an $85 billion budget, they think, all right, well, there's a lot of money there. There are some contractual obligations to pensions. There are things that we pay for. We provide a ton of critical social services.
Debt service.
Yeah, of course. And then there's also this kind of the infrastructure plan that we've had to carry for a long time. There's been decades of promises of state funding that we don't get. I mean, that has to do with our education system as well. So we've really had to, compensate for all of these shortfalls. So we're already, as a city, I think, very, very efficient in implementing a budget. Sometimes better years than others. But when it comes to the tax bill, I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to look out for. I mean, there's SALT. There's taxing people who are making, these families that are making $200,000. I mean, we really are relying on a lot of those taxes from these families, these working class families, and we can't tax people who make less than that. I mean, we are really struggling as a lot of in our communities, very, very low income. So it's going to take, a lot of collaboration. I think during my campaign, I was very, very intentional about forming a coalition with Assembly, with Senate leaders, and making sure that I knew the groups that were doing the work. And I think that some of the agencies they can come to us and say, hey, here are programs that are not working. Here's whether it's case studies, whether it's data. There's different ways to kind of assess it. But I think that, you know, we have a lot of critical services that we have to provide, and we have very large constituencies.
Just a quick factual question. Do you think the city should put up the money to the Metropolitan Transportation Authority that the governor is saying? The governor, they want to do an $800-some million plan, and the governor says the city should put in half of that money, and the mayor says, well, you've been diverting money that we've put in over the years. Should the city put in the money?
Not until they find that $500 million that we gave, and they don't know what happened, fell behind a bookshelf somewhere.
I mean, Southeast Queens is a transit desert.
Absolutely.
In some ways.
Yeah.
Should the city be putting up that money?
I have tremendous mixed emotions when it comes to this issue because, as you said, Southeast Queens is a transportation desert. I mean, our commute is one of the longest commutes in the country. To get downtown, two buses and a train. It's outrageous. 2 hours to get.
And you have that old, unused Long Island Railroad.
That's
line
right. That's right. There is a lot of non-utilized space as well. So I've got mixed, very very mixed feelings on it.
I think we need money owed. You know, I think we have to start there. I mean, it's like I said, in terms of infrastructure, there's a lot of things that we've been compensating for. I'm talking about the MTA. I'm talking about public housing. We have to really start looking at these as general infrastructure projects, but really get the money that's owed by the state.
Just quickly, do you want
The
to?
state.
Huh?
I think the state should.
Yes, sir. Let me take a question. Tell us your name and your campus,
Good.
please.
Okay, questions. Nice.
Hi, my name is Tommy Rodriguez. I go to Baruch College, and I just want to thank you all for coming out here to speak with us. My question is, what obstacles do you foresee for the participatory budgeting plan that you guys have, and how do you plan to tackle those? Thank you.
I don't see any obstacles at all. I think it's something that the community welcomes and would like to see happen in the 41st. So I don't see any obstacles at all, and I just look forward to the whole process.
For me, and something that we've yet to do in District 28, the word participatory. I would love for District 28 to really come out and participate. I've heard some council members say that they no longer participate in the program because the participation from their constituents just isn't there. And if that were to happen to us in 28, I would be very, very hurt by that. So for me, that would really be the only obstacle, is that this first run for us coming up probably in 2018, that we really, really do have true participation in PB.
Anybody
Great
else?
question.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, I'd be the first guy to do it in the districts, you know. So I'm hoping that people will participate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Tell us your name and your campus, please.
Okay, my name is Kadiatu and I go to John Jay College.
Speak up, please. I'm sorry.
My name is Kadiatu and I go to John Jay College of Criminal Justice and I'm a senior. I noticed that you guys were mentioning that, you know, money was the issue, and I also see that some district, why is that some district get more money than the other? Is that because like the needs of the area?
Well, is it needs or is it the squeaky wheel gets?
I was just about to
gets
say
the-
is what Councilman Adams
gets
said.
the grease. I mean, you know, there is this
Yeah.
perception that
Yeah.
things are not always needs-based, but they're political power-based.
Absolutely.
I agree. I think that's a very good question because it could be a number of factors. You know, you should be looking at the poverty level of these communities and seeing where they're going to need more money. In District 2, it's really interesting because we have two school districts that are very, very different because of the demographics and the affluence of certain neighborhoods. But as mentioned, the speaker's race and that relationship could be kind of toxic if you don't do the right thing, if the person is vindictive. But you could really get a lot of resources for your district if you're vocal about it. But I do know that there are communities that they need more, and I think we should be all prepared for that.
I mean, your district.
My district's interesting. It's very diverse demographically. It's all sorts of incomes. I mean, you have folks who are living paycheck to paycheck, and you have people living in $3 million mansions. You know, so it's an interesting district, and you know, I really ran on the platform of opening up the process and bringing more people to the table, so to speak, literally and figuratively. So, you know, looking to really make this a collaborative effort where it's like, yeah, I might have won on election day, but really my name was on the ballot.
Of course, but you know, just talk briefly because we're running a little short of time. You had actually a contested election.
Yeah. I mean,
As, everybody else's elections were essentially in the primary.
Right.
You actually handled it.
Yeah. I mean,
contested. You and Crowley, I think, were the only two really contested.
Yeah. I mean, I had a tough primary, and I had a very tough general. I ended up winning by less than 1,000 votes. So, people that tell you that their vote doesn't count, I mean,
right.
local elections,
Absolutely.
I mean, every vote counts. Yeah, I'm in a very unique district. I have 3 the state senate, assembly, and our congressperson. They're all Republicans. So,
do you work with them? Do you know them?
yeah, I work with them. Sure. I mean, look, I think. I'm also, I also have a political club. I mean, I think they understand, when you wear that hat. But when it comes down to delivering and being a, elected official and delivering for your constituents, none of that matters. I'd sit at the table with anybody to improve my district, of course.
Yes, sir. Tell us your name and your campus and speak up, please.
My name is Samuel Liff. I'm a CUNY BA for Unique.
Samuel what?
Liff.
How about that? It's a
Also.
nice, very nice name.
No relation.
Thank you.
We could be relations. We'll talk afterwards.
I'm a student in the CUNY BA for Unique and Interdisciplinary Studies program. My question for the panelists is whether you feel that participatory budgeting is something that should happen in every district or whether it should remain kind of at the discretion of the council member individually.
It's a good question.
I mean, should it be mandated? I mean, these are the kinds of things that, we talked about member deference, we talked about member items. Should the member have the right to decide whether or not to do it?
I think, again, the member is the one that knows the district better than anyone knows the district. So I don't think that it should be mandated. I think that it should be the member's decision.
I mean, should
Member decision.
Member decision. Yeah. Let me ask you just about a couple of issues that are floating. The mayor was talking about closing Rikers, which would mean opening jails in each borough. Wanted to have more community-based correctional facilities where people retain connections to the communities they come from. Are you comfortable with that as an issue with closing Rikers if it means prisons coming, not necessarily into your neighborhood? I mean, there could be one borough, but you could see more neighborhood-based facilities.
Well, I have Crossroads in my district. And when they opened Crossroads, it was
Crossroads is what?
Is a juvenile justice, a juvenile detention center in the middle of Brownsville. And the reason why Crossroads opened in 2004, 2005 was because they said that most of the youth that were on Spofford came from 11212.
Right.
And so the children needed to be closer
Spofford
to
was the juvenile facility in the Bronx.
Exactly.
Right? A citywide facility.
The citywide facility.
Right.
And so it just made sense to build the jail in the middle of the district where most of the children were from. And so that facility is located directly across the street from the 73rd Precinct. And everything in that little area feels like that whole criminal justice corridor. And so with the closing of Rikers, I do believe that there is a need to close Rikers because, I think we need to actually talk about bail reform. Should all of these thousands of people be on Rikers Island? And they're now talking about...
So many people have never been convicted of anything.
Exactly.
Right.
And we have a lot of, I think it's like some 130, 140 youth that are there when you talk about raise the age and looking to see where those children should be housed. And so they're looking at Crossroads. And now they're looking at another facility in my district to house some of the most violent young people who are on Rikers Island. Where should they be? And again, my question is, should all of those young people even be incarcerated right now?
But I'm sorry, but if there's a choice, but you could face a choice of, would you fight locating that facility in your district?
So the facility exists already.
I'm sorry, you're talking about expanding the existing?
They want to expand the existing facility or add more, increase the funding so that they can build it to capacity to be able to house everyone. And so that I have an issue with. I think that we should just be looking at across the board criminal justice reform and other places that people can go to.
I was going to say, I think that the Close Rikers campaign is more than just closing Rikers. It is about speedy trial and bail reform. It is about why can't we fund alternative to incarceration programs, or really just putting that money towards the education system, putting more social workers and counselors in our schools instead of the first person they see when they walk in being a police officer. So I think that it's a good campaign. It means a lot more than just the jails that are on an island. And I think that to Alika's point, fair share is important in this particular circumstance when it comes to a city facility. But I'm on the Close Rikers campaign. I believe in it. I say I can't be on that campaign and not take a local jail.
Does your district include Civic Center and all the prisons in the?
No, that would be like the Tombs. That's in Margaret Chin's district.
That's
and-
okay. Okay. So, I mean, same question for you about these kinds of facilities.
Well, I certainly appreciate the Lippman report and all of the work
Judge Lippman's
absolutely,
report,
and
right.
all of the work that went into that. I think that the results were phenomenal. My mother is a retired corrections captain from Rikers, so she did over 20 years as an officer there. So I grew up with the stories there, and at this point in time, I think that Rikers has seen better days. I think that the time for Rikers to go is yesterday. And that is for the benefit of all that are sitting there languishing. Children are languishing there without any dates for anything. And the correction officers also who have been hurt. We need to take a look at them as well and protect them also. In Queens, we have a facility right next to the courts. And I think that that is probably the best scenario that we can have.
Which the
is-
borough-wide officials
That's
seem
right.
to be accepting.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I support closing Rikers for all the the holistic reasons mentioned here. I think Bay Ridge is pretty remote. I don't think they're going to put a jail out there. It's about as hard to get to as Rikers.
But if they would you fight it? But if they would.
That's a good
This is
question.
kind of,
I don't know.
It's kind of a fair share issue.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I would have to take community input on it and see what they think. I mean, if there are, I mean, I think what like Alika said, I mean, if it was folks who were from the area, well, then I think it would make sense, and I believe in that. But that's a tough question. It's tough.
We only have a minute left. Very, very briefly, what's your top priority? I mean, very briefly, what's your top priority? When you get in there, what do you want to do?
Housing. Make sure that we
Affordable
have
housing.
affordable housing and we protect our housing
And
stock.
protect it against gentrification.
Absolutely.
Corlina.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one? Just one?
You can have as many as you want.
No,
15
because then I'll
seconds.
be here. I'll be here all night. No, I think housing is incredibly important. It's rent regulated. It's public housing. It's the Mitchell-Lama program or whatever new version of that we can create, because I think home ownership opportunities for working class isn't there. Small business preservation. I mentioned criminal justice reform.
Commercial rent tax.
That would be awesome.
Go ahead. We have very-
I would agree also. Housing is at the top of the list. My district, dominantly, we are a district of homeowners. But again, because of the homeless crisis, we are now building downtown Jamaica affordable housing.
ahead, very
Education,
quickly.
building more schools and doing whatever we can for public transportation.
I want to thank you all. We're running out of time. I always make deadline. Thank you. We'll see you next time on CUNY Forum. Thank
Thank
you all
you.
very
Thank
much.
you so
you.
much. Thank you.